So one of the common questions I get from clients is in regards to buying properties overseas. And given I'm in Queenstown this weekend and have just played at a fantastic golf course, Jacks Point, and may have looked at a few properties around the golf course myself, I thought it'd be a fitting subject to talk about this weekend. So, you're an Australian citizen, you have property and income in Australia, and you want to buy a property overseas. How does it work? So, there's effectively two ways that you can approach this. One is to try and get a mortgage in the country you're looking to buy in. So you can't get an Australian mortgage from an Australian bank in an overseas country because the security needs to come from the country that the bank is in. And so you can't apply to CBA or Westpac or ANZ in Australia for a home loan in New Zealand or in Bali or in any overseas country. And so if you want to get a mortgage for a property in that country, you need to apply for a mortgage in that country. Now, in New Zealand, in Queenstown at the moment, your banking systems are quite similar to Australia. And so there would likely be a way that if you've got an Australian income, you could potentially buy an investment property in New Zealand using that Australian income as an expat. But it would be important to note you would not be applying through an Australian mortgage broker or an Australian bank. You'd be applying through a New Zealand mortgage broker or a New Zealand bank for New Zealand finance on the New Zealand property. So you need to qualify for the country that you're applying for finance. Now, if you wanted to buy a property in Bali, for example, or in another country, you would need to qualify finance in that country. And in many countries, that's a lot more challenging. So first step is potentially trying to get finance in that country. But again, depending on where you buy, it can be very challenging. The other way that you could do this would be to try and release equity from a property that you've got in Australia. Now, this would be an Australian mortgage for an Australian property based on your Australian income, and effectively you would be doing an equity release on property. But the important distinction is that this is not secured by your property in New Zealand or in Bali or in any other country. This is a mortgage secured by your property in Australia, so you've obviously got to have sufficient equity in this property. And the servicing and everything else will be assessed based on your Australian income. But the key thing is you need to basically have the full purchase price of the property in equity in your Australian property. You release that in cash and you effectively buy the new property in cash. And so if you're buying a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 villa in Bali, for example, that can be quite doable. If you're buying a $1.5 million holiday house on a golf course or near a ski field in Queenstown, probably not quite so doable for most people. So if you've got any questions about buying property overseas, shoot me a message.